watched. Did part 1. It was good. Let's go into part 2. We're watching innovation go up against Curious, and in particular the ways that these players are both taking expansions and securing them. The big thing that we're seeing out of Curious is that these key contention points, he really packs a lot of spine crawlers in there. A lot. We see one's already down, but down on the south side, we see that it's really quite helpful. Especially because with this positioning, the big reason this is so great for Zerg is that by placing it just inside the choke, like here's where things can actually be hit, by putting it just in here, innovation can't actually step right here. Innovation would want to step here to be able to kill off the spine crawlers, but then he'd have a bigger army retreating through a smaller choke. This means the banelings would deal massive damage. So by placing the spine crawlers back, the Marines actually have to stay at max range. It's really cool. Same thing here. If we place it just at the edge of the choke, he's going to have to retreat in a bad position. Mainly banelings, mainly mutalisks, fewer zerglings, although obviously we replenish lots of zerglings and stuff, guys. Now we have what I would describe as a little bit more typical of an interaction, which is a Terran player picking a base, drilling it, and killing it. However, another big tool that we're seeing that Curious will be using throughout is that as this base dies, still 4 base. If it was, the 3rd base dying, it'd be a lot more dire, but especially when this happens, the Mutalisks have a good opportunity to do a little bit of a sweep counterattack just because of the relationship of these armies on the map. The harder Terran drills up here, the easier it is for Mutalisks to drill down here. And Terran doesn't exactly have the best choice of what to do here. So Curious, evening up the expansions. Very rare that we see this sort of cool play happen, because it's just so hard to get here, really. Innovation's actually forced to pull way the heck back. Does not want to run half an army into a baneling-infested zone, so Curious can pick this off. We'll also see a lot more of these burrowed banelings from Curious as he begins to regain map control. And we actually see Mutalisks doing Mutalisky things, like killing off small packs. Yeah! Yes, so slick, so suave, so smooth, so boss. Weirdly killing this base. How odd. And Curious has sort of completed the mega transition to Ultra Infestor. Yeah. We see the units that are getting cut is the lane count. It's not up in the 70s, 80s as usual. Alright, cool. So it's been sort of evened out. And now that the entire army is on this side, not a good time to expand because of, obviously, this command center and this whole army moving up here. Very rough spot to be in. But it's kind of funny that as the game gets really late, tactics and cool things begin to be a lot more possible, especially burrow baneling tactics like this. It's so important to have, in the early game, all your forces here and ready to defend this and hold this off. But in this position, Curious, by doing this little counterattack, can set himself up for these types of plays oh so excellently. So no real attack going on by Innovation, more just sweeping his army up to be able to take this base. This base, defended by small packs of stuff as well. And this part's just cool. Remember how I was telling you about tactics? Yeah. Oh! Oh! Yeah. Oh! Nice. So I would like to, again, note sort of the significance of those tactics. I mean, killing things is great, but let's actually see the plan change midway through. What are you going to be doing as Innovation in a spot like this? You're probably going to be cutting somewhere down like this to be able to have these units over here cut over like that, because this expansion's had enough time to get set up. Or you may very well have this set of units sort of move down here, join with these units down here, and then pull back up to do a push this way. Again, makes sense because we have this expansion getting established up here. However, when this big hit happens, let me see. How do you do the units died, the units that have been killed off? What's that hotkey? I don't actually know. Oh, I'll just compute it. Okay, so there's a lot of rows. There's 4.5 rows. Okay, there were 4.5 rows, and now there's 2.5. So it killed like 20 Marines. It's suddenly quite scary for innovation to even move out onto the map. So he's got to pull back. And in particular, he's got to defend this expansion even more strongly. Kinda dicey for him to move out upon yonder map. So of course, since this entire force is up here, partly because Curious got the nice bomb and Innovation felt obligated to be a little more protected, and also because the Mutalisks are a more direct threat here, Curious can easily begin doing more bottom threats down here. And again, kind of paradoxically, Innovation's in a bad spot because of how many bases he has. Taking these opposite corner bases is a little tough. In a way, Innovation almost wishes this expansion weren't even here at all. Hitting on this side is great, so the counterattack on this side can pop up on in. Sort of tactics that you don't really get the opportunity to see much. Curious! Alright, gonna speed it up a bit. In the meantime, Curious has actually not really done much, but lose Zerglings and replace them with Ultralisks, and add more Mutalisks, and do tactics. Burrowed Banelings and this sort of thing. Now moving all the way on over to this side, for what reason? Securing a base over here, and because he sees the whole army here, it's a nice opportunity for the rest of his stuff to move up top. Just gentle pushing and pulling. Uh-oh. And there we go. There's a snipe. There's a nice little snag there. Yeah, there we go. A nice other little snipe there. Curious is doing such good work. She's playing so well. I love him so much. Now, Innovation's just pure brunt macro, and he's made enough great decisions this game. He's going to slowly be able to edge out Curious, but I do think a couple of very simple maneuvers, Burrowed Baneling Mines, while this big powering amount of Mutalisks is out, going to help a lot. I don't know if he hits any more Burrowed Banelings here, but he does hit some really slick bungles. And the last little, I think the moment, like the specific moment where Curious loses is right here. The last little bit of time Curious has been spending evening up the expo count. So what are the big targets? It's here if there were more minerals, but not really. Really wherever Innovation chooses to expand next is the biggest target for Curious. And Curious just needs to keep this base alive. Like, needs to, because Curious is running kind of low himself. So if he can just keep a base up, he's in good shape. And I think this moment when he pulls over is just not the right move. And it hurts my little Zergy heart. Because this attack is really close. Look what's still alive. Just some Marines. A lot of mines, all of which have detonated except for this back one. And it's just barely enough to kill off this base. I mean, on Innovation side of things, great moves seeing these Mutalisks dip so far in and just gunning for this. Innovation may very well have just been intending to go here, but then he sees the Mutalisks up in the main base and goes, oh, well, cool. Well, let's kill this. And thusly why, in my eyes, Curious winds up tapping on out. Pretty cool moves. Here's Mutilus showing up and finally cleaning everything up. Wouldn't it have been great if they had done that with a protected base? Planetaries are so scary, getting buried to kill it. And then Innovation just sort of rallies. Rally ho. This is not a real base. If this gets attacked, you're gonna let it die. And look at this, yeah, Innovation doing totally the right move. Oh, what, you want to kill my main? Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'll just stick in the middle of the map. Make sure that my precious little base is defended. And everything we were talking about earlier, oh, runs this way. You know it's a big juicy target? This base, right over here. Curious knows it, he taps out. Here we go, let's see if we can close it without crashing. The fear that I feel. Alright. So we're going to load up this next game. Take a look at a very similar style of things. This is Frost. This is one of the new maps in the map rotation. And what we're going to see here is that because of the tremendous distances, Zerg has a lot more opportunities to do those sort of Mutalisk counter-attacking moves that we saw before. We're going to see a game of extraordinary epicness. Same Hellion stuff's coming up. Same Zergling speed into layering stuff as well. Kind of an interesting early move, this burrow tactic. Stoink. And of course, in terms of the getting gas stuff early, we see that there's going to be speed for Overlords before layer. We already see the 1-1 upgrades. Come on, there it is. Speed for Overlords. Burrowed Zerglings all ready to do the spotting. So there's some nice early tactics that are only really viable on these huge maps that are not so viable on others. Things like having Zerglings run around like this. Nice lucky shot there. That's pretty cool. Alright, speeding things up. So Innovation has the wonderful fortune of this being an extremely easy base to take. This can be good for surprise tactics, but you can kind of do a wall off like this along this region, and then you can just rally like right here, and then easily dart up and that sort of thing. I actually don't know what I feel about killing off these rocks early on to just have a big fat open ramp. I don't know. I don't know if I have a big opinion on that. Anyway, same little timing push we saw last game, which is not really my focus of excitement. But we're going to see the same theme here. Barracks being added before 4th, and the 4th only really being added when there's a clear coordination. Okay, so how does Innovation proceed to do these attacks? These little split attacks are super hard to do on this split of a map. On this enormous, big, wide, spread out thing of a map here. These pushes are reasonable for letting this army move forward, but I don't think that these drops can really be so big, because they're just so easy to pick off. Down one goes. Down the second goes. That's a very cool move. Loading up and then unloading directly sort of limits the max amount of damage that things can happen in. But great. 3 barracks go down, and then the command center goes down. Right now, this is not a safe base at all. There's no clear attack that Curious really has to put his... Oops. He really has to put his forces behind. Here is the first inklings of that coming to fruition. But we still see it's not as great. These troops kind of need to be... They're kind of wanting to be part of this force. I think Innovation's correct to be careful. And Curious is just doing the usual excellent job of managing it. And right about now, the real game is going to begin. Yes. Alright, Zergling counterattacks, always going to be a good choice, especially when you can set them here and flood in some Banelings and be in good shape. Never want to over-baneling if this is at the front door. Not dying to this is more than important. This kind of stinks, the sensor tower finishing right then and there. Alright, speeding things along. Oh, yes, excellent. Remember last game when I was talking on and on and on and on and on about the other base that should really totally be taken? Yeah, now we're talking here. This is the obvious fourth base for innovation. This is the obvious fourth base for Curious, and he's spining and sporing his little heart out here. But what about the fifth base? Pretty obvious choice, as it's a hop, skip, and a jump. And when's a great time to take it? When we know the army's right here. Oh, we can just move our Zerglings there really easily because of the creep spread. We especially easily have our Mutalisk coming up there. So unless this army packs up and begins heading north, away from these bases, unless he does that, we know that it's only going to be tiny forces moving up there. So the Mutalisks, for Curious, are definitely going to be staying on the north side of this base and might even extend up here. You can get over-eager and want to kill off the reinforcement line, which is fine. You can move up and attack from this angle downward. But what you can't do is try to swoop down here and up like this. This is when the danger happens. So kind of along the same vein, we see the Zerglings moving to the top side. Because either they're going to be there to defend this base, or it's going to permit us to do a flank, or it's going to permit us to do an attack up on this base. See kind of what I mean? These Zerglings totally could have run the other way, but this is a much nicer feel to it because it can counterattack here, or it can pull back to defend our new base. All about the bases, blobbity blobbity bases, bases. Are those dudes still there? Oh shit, Curious, you badass. So Curious is continuing to do this cool thing where he builds spines just outside a range of chokes. If the Marines move in like this, Banelings roll in, and there is a choke constricting the retreat path. On these big maps, Curious is amazing at just inviting in the attacks. Looks like the most confused Zerglings of all time will finally head up to this top expansion. The most confused Banelings of all time will roll in a random direction. And the Mutalisks, as we see, are still poaching along the north side, so that way they can easily get to and defend this top base. Alright, the Banelings, getting ready to re-roll in. I'm hitting plus. Yeah, you see the Mutalisks heading up here to harass this base? I mean, this appears to be the most easily harassable base, because the Mutalisk can fly in from the center. But center of the map, if we just look at it, not nearly as strong of a hold on defending this. I mean, he can easily just zoink and shoot over. But these Mutalisks have a much stronger defense line there. Very unusual to see Zerg this far out on the map. Ooh! Yeah. Hell yeah. A doo-wop. A doodly-doodly-doo-da. So now with his Mutalisks being deep up into the Terran base, this Expo is suddenly quite vulnerable. Spinecrawler is doing a lot of work to help the Banelings get the opportunity to roll up on in. Innovation shows once again why it's scary to move out with too many forces. So now things are getting disrupted pretty heavily here. So now we can get some real wonderful learning going on. What is that Mutalisk count at? Jeez, 32. Nice. Yeah. So we see the same theme from Curious. If he wants to attack, he's going to have to just be poaching up along this top side, because he wants to defend this most recent expansion. The southern one does have some already existing nice defenses for it. And we see the attempt from Curious to move up here. Now, this base could have the Mutalisk pull back and attempt to assist in the defense. But we've seen, again, the burrow techniques, being able to burrow here, being able to burrow out here for those mines is Very excellent. And in short, this Expo is like super dead. Good old counterattack continues. And Innovation is in such a bad position to be able to deal with this, just because the long distance between here and the now fourth of Curious. I suddenly got concerned that this was part 3 and I was running out on time, but holy crap, my brain just blipped. This is part 2. Nice. Nice. Very nice. I'm actually just kind of blown away at how rarely we see these sorts of counter swings, but Curious does them really well. And just a straight good smashing job. Yes. Now, what's sort of... I'm of the opinion, especially in a spot like this, that if there's a retreat back along this way, probably not the best time to be expanding here, unless you intend for the Mutalisks to just park here for all time. If you are pulling this force down like that, pulling the Mutalisk force down back to get to mid, if you take this, it doesn't make sense because you're intending on immediately abandoning that attack, or that expansion. Immediately abandoning it via your positioning of your Mutalisks. So this movement here, we can stop here, but if we intend to pull all the way back down south, this would be one of the worst times to take this expansion. We have nothing there defending this. We have no idea where this force is. Hell, we're even moving over here. Now, you'd ordinarily hear me say something like, oh yeah, this is a really good time to take this base here. And, quite honestly, it would be. It was a totally fine place to take. At the same time, though, we do have to weigh other factors like, how easy is this to defend in general? Generally speaking, is this a decent place to be taking a base? Generally speaking, is this a decent place to be taking a base? And whatever we choose, our army is going to be the biggest protector of it. So right now, this is the biggest protector. But if I'm curious, I still can do moves like come up here, try to do an assault here, and then pull my Mutalisks up like this. Notice this move, starting here, moving up and cutting back to do an assault here. Beautiful way to defend this expansion. It's all hidden behind it. So, I guess I'd say that this whole notion of moving an army and expanding behind it and retreating and pulling back and then moving the army around again to sort of plan to meet up in a way that defends, there's a lot of complex different situations, but the statement is still pretty simple at the end of the day. The army you have and the army he has, where they're positioned, should have a really strong relationship to which base you're taking and which base you're attacking. We're going to see some more craziness come out of this. Right now it's sort of been shoved back down to the lower base count, but these players are going to be kind of battling hard to get the extra bases. They're almost mined out, and we're halfway through the game. So there's plenty of more insanity to come. Part 3 coming up, yeah.